In 1958, a woman in Selma, Alabama fed 9 people on a welfare check that covered 4 days of food. She made it last 11. Her secret wasn't a recipe. It was a way of looking at hunger and refusing to let it win. Her daughter, now 74 years old, still keeps a mason jar of bacon grease on her stove, the same way her mother did, the same way her mother's mother did before that. She says she doesn't know how to cook any other way. These are the meals nobody wrote cookbooks about. No one photographed them for a magazine. No restaurant charges $18 for them today with a rustic garnish on top. These are the meals that lived in the back of a pantry, in the bottom of a pot, in the memory of women who turned a 50-cent grocery bill into 3 meals a day for a family of 8. 60 meals. 60 ways Black families in America refused to starve inside a system built to make sure they came close. Some of these meals you've heard of. Most of them, you haven't, because the people who made them never had time to write them down. They were too busy making sure there was a tomorrow to eat them again. Number 10 on this list wasn't chosen by a chef. It was chosen by a mother standing over a stove with nothing left in the cupboard but faith and a bag of cornmeal. By the time we get to number 60, you'll understand why these meals were never really about the food at all. Hit subscribe if you want to see all 60. Let's start at the beginning.
Number 1. Rice and butter with sugar. Have you ever tasted a memory? Rice and butter with sugar was one of those breakfasts that didn't need a recipe, just rhythm, love, and a little bit of hope. It was a dish born in kitchens where the pantry was sparse, but the heart was full. Just plain white rice, a pat of butter melting into every grain, and a sprinkle of sugar that turned something humble into something comforting. For many African American families, this was the breakfast that showed up when times were tough. It was warm, sweet, and filling, a way to start the day with something that felt like a hug from the inside. Elders remember scraping the pot for the crispy bits at the bottom, the ones that tasted like toasted gold. This dish wasn't about luxury. It was about survival, creativity, and making the most of what you had. And somehow, it always tasted like home. Number 2. Stewed oxtails with rice gravy. Now, this right here, this was the crown jewel. Stewed oxtails, tender and slow, cooked till the meat just fell from the bone like it was tired from holding on. Grandma didn't rush that pot, she let it talk. Browned oxtails, onions, garlic, and a little flour for that deep brown gravy that hugged every grain of rice. You could hear that slow simmer, pop, hiss, bubble all afternoon. The kind of sound that told you Christmas was real. And when she finally lifted that lid, it wasn't just food inside. It was memory, patience, and pride. Did you know oxtails started as a dish of necessity? Enslaved Africans were given leftover cuts, but through skill and spirit, they turned scraps into luxury. Now, it's served in fine restaurants, but back then, it was soul alchemy. Turning what little you had into something rich enough to make the whole family quiet at first bite. Number 3. Ham hocks and grits. Ham hocks and grits were more than a meal. They were a statement. A bold, smoky, hearty breakfast that filled the belly and warmed the soul. The ham hocks were simmered until tender, releasing a rich flavor that soaked into the creamy grits like a secret passed down through generations. This dish was often served on weekends, when families had time to cook slow and eat together. It was a breakfast that stuck to your ribs and carried you through the day. Elders remember the smell of it cooking before sunrise, the anticipation of that first bite, and the satisfaction that followed. Grits were the canvas, and ham hocks were the masterpiece. Together, they told a story of resilience, resourcefulness, and deep Southern pride. Number 4. Stuffed bell peppers with rice and onion. Now this was Grandma's masterpiece in disguise. You'd see those colorful peppers sitting in the pan, and you knew she was showing off that day. Inside, rice, onions, maybe a little ground beef or sausage if times were good. She'd season it with soul, not just salt and pepper, out that invisible something only Grandma had. Stuffed peppers came from a place of making much from little. Every leftover found a home inside those peppers. And when they baked, the smell rolled through the whole house, savory, rich, like you could taste it just by breathing. You'd walk through the door, and someone would say, "Ooh," she'd mack in them peppers again. It wasn't Christmas without them. Number 5, Apple Brown Betty. What do you do with old apples and stale bread? If you were raised right, you made Apple Brown Betty. This dessert was the queen of resourcefulness. Layers of sliced apples, cinnamon, sugar, and buttered breadcrumbs baked until bubbly and golden. It was like apple pie's scrappy cousin. No crust, no fuss, just flavor. Elders remember macking it in cast iron skillets, serving it hot with a scoop of ice cream or a splash of cream. It was warm, spiced, and comforting, the kind of dessert that made you feel safe. And the best part? It was made from leftovers. That's the magic of soul food. Turn nothing into something unforgettable. Number 6, peanut butter and molasses on bread. This dish was sticky, sweet, and full of character. Peanut butter and molasses came together on a slice of bread to create a bold, flavorful breakfast. Molasses added a smoky sweetness that elevated the peanut butter into something unforgettable. It was a sandwich that filled you up and stayed with you. For families with limited resources, this was a go-to meal. Easy to make, hard to forget, and always satisfying. Elders remember licking their fingers, wiping their mouths, and feeling full in more ways than one. It was a dish that proved flavor didn't come from money. It came from memory. Number 7, Hoppin' John. Rice, black-eyed peas, and smoked ham hock. That's Hoppin' John. The good luck meal that always snuck onto the Christmas or New Year's table. Grandma said it brought prosperity, and nobody questioned it. You had to eat it before midnight, or your next year might not shine as bright. The aroma was smoky and savory, rich from the ham, earthy from the peas. And when she lifted that pot lid, that was hope rising. Did you know Hoppin' John traces all the way back to West Africa? It's a cousin of Wakia dish, brought over by enslaved Africans who carried the recipe in memory. It's not just good eating, it's history reborn with every holiday spoonful. Number 8, old-fashioned tea cakes. Now, if you grew up Southern, these little cookies were sacred. Not store-bought, homemade, soft, and lightly golden. Sugar, butter, flour, eggs, simple as could be. But when Grandma rolled them out and cut them with that chipped glass, they came out tasting like time itself. Tea cakes weren't fancy, but they had that taste of Sunday after church, of childhood comfort. Some grandmas added lemon zest or vanilla, others a little molasses. And you knew it was Christmas when she brought out that tin box, the one you weren't supposed to touch but always did. Those tea cakes were love disguised as dessert. Number 9, pineapple upside-down cake. That cake was a holiday event. Grandma would layer the pineapple rings just right, tuck cherries in the middle, pour the brown sugar glaze, and then the flip. You remember the flip? Everyone would hold their breath while she turned that pan, and when it came out perfect, the room cheered like she'd won a prize. That glossy, caramelized top, golden and sticky, it wasn't just pretty, it was pride. A little slice of joy that looked like Christmas lights. Pineapple upside-down cake first became big in the 50s when canned fruit was a sign of having made it. But in black kitchens, it became something else, a symbol of celebration, of turning something simple into something special. Number 10, oatmeal pie. Oatmeal pie was the underdog of Southern sweets. A pie that looked like pecan, but had a flavor all its own. Made with oats, sugar, eggs, and a splash of vanilla, it baked into a chewy, caramelized filling that was rich and satisfying. This was the pie you made when you couldn't afford pecans, and somehow it ended up being just as good. Elders remember it as the pie that surprised you one bite and you were hooked. It was sweet, hearty, and full of texture. And when it was served warm with a scoop of ice cream, game over.
Number 11,
ham bone soup with vegetables, though often served at dinner. Ham bone soup sometimes made its way to the breakfast table, especially on cold mornings. Simmered overnight with collards, carrots, and potatoes, it was a rich, nourishing start to the day. The broth was deep and flavorful, the vegetables tender, and the ham bone added a smoky depth that made every spoonful memorable. This dish was more than a meal. It was medicine, comfort, and love in liquid form. Elders remember sipping it slowly, feeling it warm their bodies and knowing they were cared for. It was a dish that healed, nourished, and connected generations.
Number 12.
Leftover sweet potato hash. Sweet potato hash was a brilliant way to repurpose leftovers. Chopped sweet potatoes, often from last night's dinner, were fried with onions, peppers, and spices until crispy and golden. This dish was flavorful, hearty, and full of soul. It was a breakfast that honored the past while feeding the present. The caramelized edges and soft centers created a perfect balance, and every bite carried the warmth of home. Elders remember the sizzle of the skillet, the smell of the spices, and the satisfaction of turning scraps into something special. It was a dish that celebrated creativity, tradition, and the joy of cooking with care.
Number 13.
Rice and molasses supper. Despite its name, this dish was often eaten in the morning. Hot rice topped with thick, dark molasses created a sweet, earthy breakfast that was both filling and affordable. Molasses was a staple in many African American kitchens, and when paired with rice, it became a dish of resilience and creativity. It was a quiet meal, often eaten in silence, but carried the strength of generations who knew how to make the most of what they had. Elders remember the richness of the molasses, the warmth of the rice, the feeling of starting the day with something that mattered. It was a dish that spoke softly, but carried a powerful message. We endure, we create, we remember.
Number 14.
Chitlins with hot sauce. Now, this one divided the room. You either loved chitlins or you ran from the smell. But everybody respected M. Chitlins were history on a plate, the story of survival in every bite. Made from pork intestines, cleaned slow, cooked long, and seasoned deep, Grandma would say, "Don't rush 'em, baby. Let the flavor come to you." That smell filled the block. You could tell who was cooking just by walking outside. And when they hit the table, there was always that bottle of hot sauce, not fancy, just fiery. You would drizzle it over the top, take a bite, and feel your ancestors in that heat. Chitlins weren't just a dish. They were a testimony. Proof that our people turned what others threw away into something sacred.
Number 15.
Sweet potato biscuits. Now listen, these weren't just biscuits. These were sweet, soft, orange pillows of joy. Grandma would mash up leftover sweet potatoes with butter, sugar, and a touch of nutmeg. Roll that dough out on the counter, dusted with flour, and bake it till the edges kissed golden brown. You ever open that oven door and feel the wave of heat hit your face, the kind that smelled like love? She'd brush them with butter and call out, "You better grab one now, 'cause they won't be here long." And she wasn't lying. The sweet potato biscuit was the bridge between dessert and bread, sweet enough to eat alone, but strong enough to hold ham, gravy, or syrup. Each bite took you back 2 hands that worked hard, to laughter that echoed long after supper. And when you spread a little butter and watched it melt through, it wasn't just a biscuit anymore, it was a blessing.
Number 16.
Apple butter toast. Apple butter toast was a quiet luxury. Thick, spiced apple spread slathered on warm toast. The apple butter was often homemade, slow cooked with cinnamon and cloves until it reached a deep, rich flavor. This breakfast was simple but deeply satisfying, especially in the colder months. It tasted like fall, like family, like tradition. For many elders, apple butter was a treasured recipe, passed down in jars and remembered with every bite. The toast was often browned just right, with a little butter underneath to catch the sweetness. It was a dish that didn't shout. It whispered, and in that whisper was a story of care, patience, and love.
Number 17.
Chess pie. Why is it called chess pie? Nobody really knows, but one thing's for sure. It's checkmate for your sweet tooth. Chess pie was rich, dense, and unapologetically sweet. Made with eggs, sugar, butter, and a little cornmeal for texture. It baked into a golden custard with a crackly top that was pure magic. Some folks added lemon, others added vinegar, but the soul of the pie stayed the same. Simple ingredients, big flavor. Elders remember it as the pie that didn't need a reason. It was always there, sitting on the counter waiting to be sliced. And when you bit into it, it was like sugar, sunshine, and southern pride all rolled into one.
Number 18.
Wild berry dumplings. Ever remember picking berries out back, hands purple, lips sticky, grandma laughing from the porch? Those berries weren't just for snacking. They became Christmas gold when she dropped them in a pot with sugar, butter, and those little dumpling strips she rolled by hand. The smell alone could make you forget the cold outside. As the pot bubbled, steam filled the kitchen, windows fogging while someone hummed a hymn in the background. That was Christmas. Not lights or fancy gifts, just sweetness made from what the earth gave you. Some folks used blackberries, some blueberries, some mixed whatever they could find. The syrup turned thick and dark, coating every dumpling like velvet. And when she served it warm with a splash of cream, it felt like summer sneaking into December.
Number 19.
Cornmeal pound cake. What happens when you mix grit with grace? You get cornmeal pound cake, a dense, rich, slightly gritty cake that was born in the South and raised on love. This wasn't your average fluffy sponge. It had weight, it had texture, and it had soul. The cornmeal gave it a rustic bite, while the butter and sugar made it melt in your mouth. Grandmas used to bake this in old bundt pans, letting it cool on the windowsill while kids circled like hawks. It was the kind of cake that didn't need frosting, just a dusting of powdered sugar or a drizzle of syrup. If you were feeling fancy, elders remember it as the cake that lasted all week if it made it past day 2. It was sturdy, sweet, and perfect, with coffee or a cold glass of milk. And every bite tasted like home.
Number 20.
Rice pudding for breakfast. Rice pudding in the morning. Absolutely. This dish was a clever way to turn leftovers into something magical. Made with last night's rice, milk, sometimes canned, sometimes fresh sugar, and a touch of cinnamon or nutmeg, it simmered slowly until it became creamy and rich. It was the kind of breakfast that filled the house with warmth and the air with the scent of comfort. For many elders, rice pudding was a quiet luxury, a dish that reminded them of slow mornings, family stories, and the art of making something out of nothing. It was served in deep bowls, steaming hot and eaten slowly with gratitude. This wasn't just food, it was a ritual, a way to honor the past, stretch the present, and feed the future.
Number 21.
Potato candy. Wait, candy made from potatoes? You better believe it. Potato candy was one of those Depression-era miracles that turned scraps into sweetness. Just mashed potatoes, powdered sugar, and peanut butter rolled up like a pinwheel and sliced into little bites of heaven. It sounds wild, but it worked. The potatoes gave it structure, the sugar gave it sweetness, and the peanut butter brought it all home. This was the kind of treat your grandparents made when there was no money for store-bought candy. But they still wanted to give the kids something special. Elders remember macking it with their bare hands, rolling it out on wax paper, and sneaking bites before it hit the fridge. It was sticky, sweet, and unforgettable. And once you tried it, you'd be telling folks, don't knock it till you taste it.
Number 22.
Roasted chestnuts. Roasted chestnuts were a seasonal treat that sometimes made their way into breakfast. Warm, nutty, and slightly sweet. They were roasted over open flames or in the oven until the shells cracked and the aroma filled the room. Elders remember gathering around the table, peeling chestnuts and sharing stories. It was a simple pleasure, a moment of connection, and a taste of tradition that lingered long after the last shell was tossed aside. Chestnuts were more than food. They were an experience, a way to slow down, savor the moment, and remember the warmth of family.
Number 23.
Coconut custard pie. You ever taste sunshine in a slice? That's coconut custard pie. Creamy, golden, and kissed with toasted coconut on top. It was smooth, rich, and just the right kind of sweet. This pie was a staple at Sunday dinners and holiday tables, especially when someone had a fresh coconut too great. The custard was made from eggs, milk, sugar, and a whole lot of patience. It baked low and slow until it set just right. No shortcuts, no instant mix. Elders remember the sound of the hand mixer, the smell of the pie baking, and the way the crust flaked just so when you cut into it. It was a pie that made you sit down, slow down, and savor. And if you were lucky enough to get the last slice, you knew you were loved.
Number 24.
Corn fritters with syrup. Corn fritters were golden bites of joy, crispy on the outside, soft and sweet on the inside. Made from cornmeal, milk, and a few pantry staples, they were fried to perfection and drizzled with syrup. This dish was quick, affordable, and absolutely delicious. It was the kind of breakfast that made children race to the table and elders smile with pride. The fritters were often served fresh from the skillet, still sizzling, and always with a generous pour of syrup that turned them into a morning masterpiece. They were a celebration of flavor, texture, and tradition, proof that even the simplest ingredients could create something unforgettable.
Number 25.
Chicken wing stew. Close your eyes for a second. Can you smell that simmer? That slow bubble coming from a pot that's been working since sunrise? That's Grandma's chicken wing stew, the heartbeat of Christmas nights in so many homes. Wings browned just right, onions and peppers soft and sweet, a little tomato to give it body, and a handful of seasoning she never measured, just a pinch of this, baby, and a whisper of that. Broth was thick, rich, and full of stories. You could taste Sunday prayers and Friday paychecks all in one spoon. This was the after-feast dish, the one waiting on the stove once the wrapping paper settled and the laughter got low. And let's be honest, it always tasted better the next day. Because that stew wasn't just food. It was the sound of love still cooking. You remember that, don't you? That late-night kitchen light glowing soft, that smell wrapping around you like a blanket.
Number 26.
Rice pudding with raisins. Rice pudding with raisins was the dessert that doubled as comfort food. Creamy, spiced, and studded with plump raisins, it was made from leftover rice, milk, sugar, and a whole lot of love. It simmered slow on the stove, thickening into something rich and soothing. Elders remember stirring the pot with care, adding cinnamon, nutmeg, and sometimes a splash of vanilla. It was served warm or cold in chipped bowls that held more memories than porcelain. This was the kind of dessert that showed up when you needed a little sweetness to carry you through. It was simple, soulful, and unforgettable.
Number 27.
Baked macaroni pie. And now, the dish that started every feast and ended every argument, baked macaroni pie. Not that boxed macaroni and cheese nonsense. This was thick, custardy, golden-edged perfection. Elbow macaroni, sharp cheddar, butter, milk, and sometimes a touch of egg to hold it together. The top crisped up just right, if it don't crunch. It ain't done, Grandma said. Some families added breadcrumbs, others a sprinkle of paprika, but all agreed it was the table's crown. The recipe traveled from the Caribbean through the South, mixing cultures and comfort into one creamy masterpiece. That first spoonful, warm, cheesy, rich, brought silence to the room. Because when that macaroni pie hit your tongue, you knew you were home.
Number 28.
Molasses cookies. Molasses cookies were the flavor of memory, dark, chewy, and spiced just right. They were made with black strap molasses, brown sugar, and a mix of cinnamon, ginger, and cloves that filled the kitchen with warmth. These cookies weren't flashy, no frosting, no sprinkles, just pure, deep flavor that hit you in the soul. Elders remember rolling the dough in sugar, flattening it with a fork, and sneaking one off the tray before it cooled. They were the kind of cookie that made you feel grounded, like everything was going to be all right. And that smell? It was the smell of home.
Number 29.
Buttermilk pie. Buttermilk pie was the sleeper hit of southern desserts. Smooth, tangy and sweet with a custard-like filling that danced between lemony and creamy. It was the kind of pie that didn't look like much, but one bite would stop you mid-sentence. The filling was made with eggs, sugar, butter, and of course, buttermilk, that old-school ingredient that gave it a little twang. Elders remember this pie as the one that always showed up at funerals, homecomings, and holidays. Quiet, reliable, always gone by the end of the night. It was humble, but it had heart. And once you tasted it, you never forgot that silky texture and that sweet tart flavor that lingered long after the last bite.
Number 30.
Sweet potato cobbler. Ever wonder what dessert tasted like before canned pie filling and boxed crusts? Sweet potato cobbler was the real deal soft. Spiced sweet potatoes layered under a golden, buttery crust, bubbling with brown sugar and cinnamon. This was the kind of dish that showed up at every church potluck and family reunion. usually brought in a heavy dish towel-wrapped pan by someone's auntie who don't measure nothing. The smell alone could stop you in your tracks. Warm, earthy, and sweet like fall, wrapped in a hug. Elders remember peeling sweet potatoes by hand, boiling them slow, and seasoning them like they were cooking for the ancestors. And that crust? Flaky, golden, and kissed with butter. Not too thick, not too thin, just right. This cobbler wasn't just dessert. It was a celebration of what you could do with what you had. And once you tasted it, you never forgot it.
Number 31.
Roasted pig ear slabs. Pig ears might sound strange to some today, but back then, they were a prize. First, they were scrubbed clean, boiled until tender, then laid out flat and roasted slow until the edges curled and crisped like bacon. The smell was deep and savory, with a tang of vinegar or hot sauce drizzled over the top. In Birmingham, one Sunday after a long protest march, a church fed over 100 marchers with nothing but pig ears and potatoes. The laughter, the sauce running down chins, the warmth inside that church. It was proof that even the scraps could be turned into a feast of resilience. Kids gnawed on the crispy edges like candy. Elders chewed slow, remembering harder times. That plate wasn't just food. It was a reminder that we didn't just survive. We seasoned the struggle.
Number 32.
Okra and tomato stew, the garden's gift to the table. Okra came from the backyard. Tomatoes came from the neighbor. And together they made a stew that fed everyone. Sliced okra, fresh or frozen. Canned tomatoes, crushed or whole. Onions, garlic, and a splash of oil. Simmered until the okra softened and the tomatoes thickened. Seasoned with cayenne, paprika, and a pinch of sugar to cut the acid. It was served with rice, or spooned over grits, or eaten straight from the pot. Kids wrinkled their noses at the slime, but they ate it anyway because it was warm, it was filling, and it was made with love. In the 1970s, okra and tomato stew was more than a side dish. It was a lifeline.
Number 33.
Freshwater turtle stew. Caught from creeks and bayous, turtle meat was tough until it was stewed low with onions, garlic, and cayenne. The broth came out dark and rich, sometimes with okra or hard-boiled eggs to stretch it further. After the Birmingham church bombing in '63, one Louisiana family served turtle stew to grieving neighbors. No speeches, no sermons, just bowls passed hand to hand, steam rising with the weight of sorrow and strength. An elder once told a child, "We eat turtle, 'cause it's hard outside, soft inside, just like us." That pot held more than meat. It held lessons.
Number 34.
Honey-glazed sweet potatoes, sweetness that survived. Before marshmallows, before boxed mixes. There was honey, thick, golden, and sacred. Sweet potatoes were sliced thick, roasted slow, and glazed with honey pulled from wild hives or traded between neighbors. No refined sugar, no shortcuts, just earth-grown sweetness and fire-forged flavor. This dish wasn't just dessert. It was medicine. It was celebration. It was the kind of sweetness that reminded you life could still be tender. In old black cookbooks, honey-glazed sweet potatoes were a staple, served at gatherings, funerals, and Sunday suppers. They were soft, sticky, and rich with memory. To taste them was to remember the hands that stirred the pot, the voices that sang in the kitchen, the love that survived every storm. Honey-glazed sweet potatoes weren't just food. They were legacy, caramelized.
Number 35.
Ash-baked sweet potatoes, the fire's hidden treasure. You didn't need an oven. You needed a fire and a few sweet potatoes wrapped in foil, or just tossed into the ashes, left to roast until the skin blackened and the inside turned soft, caramelized, and sweet, pulled from the coals. Split open, eaten with a spoon, or with butter, or with nothing at all. It was smoky. It was earthy. It was sacred. Kids ate them as snacks. Adults ate them as sides. And everyone knew that ash-baked sweet potatoes were better than anything from a stove. In the 1950s, this was how you made dessert from dirt and fire.
Number 36.
Philadelphia pepper soup. Born from scraps and stubbornness, this soup started with cow tripe. Tough at first, but slow cooked until soft and rich. Cassava thickened it, Peppers and onions gave it bite, and herbs brought it to life. In the winter of '63, it warmed hands outside churches in North Philly after long, cold marches. Some said it smelled too strong, but to those who knew, that smell was home, a reminder that even the humblest ingredients could carry power. Every spoonful was bold, bitter, and ours, a taste of history that whispered, "We've been here. We're still here."
Number 37.
Smoked turkey neck beans, flavor forged in patience. They didn't have stock cubes. They didn't have bouillon. They had bones, smoked, seasoned, and sacred. Smoked turkey necks were dropped into pots of dried beans, black-eyed peas, butter beans, or pintos. The meat was tough, the bones were stubborn, but the flavor? It was deep. It was smoky. It was unforgettable. This dish took hours. It wasn't rushed. It was stirred slowly, simmered low, and served hot, often with cornbread on the side and gratitude in the heart. In old black cookbooks, smoked turkey neck beans weren't just a recipe. They were a ritual, a way to stretch a meal, feed a family, and honor the art of making something out of almost nothing. To eat it was to taste time, to taste care, to taste a legacy that refused to be bland.
Number 38.
Red beans and rice, the pot that never ran out. It started with dried beans, soaked overnight, simmered all day. Red beans, slow cooked with onions, garlic, and maybe a scrap of ham or sausage if you had it. Seasoned with cayenne, thyme, and bay leaf. Thickened until creamy. Served over rice, hot, fluffy, and cheap. It was a Monday meal in New Orleans, a weeknight staple in Georgia, a comfort food in every black kitchen that knew how to make a pot stretch. Kids ate it before school, parents ate it after work, and the leftovers got better every day. In the 1950s, red beans and rice wasn't just a dish, it was a strategy.
Number 39.
Okra fritters, crisp from the roots. Okra didn't just thicken stews. It danced in hot oil, chopped, battered, and fried into golden bites of joy. Okra fritters were the kind of snack you made when you had a little flour, a little cornmeal, and a whole lot of flavor. Crispy on the outside, tender inside, with that signature okra silk binding it all together, served hot, sometimes with a splash of vinegar or a pinch of cayenne. In old black cookbooks, okra fritters were tucked between staples, not flashy, but unforgettable. They were made for front porches, fish fries, and moments when the kitchen became a celebration. Okra came from Africa, frying came from survival, and the fritter? That was genius. To bite into one was to taste history, crunchy, earthy, and sacred.
Number 40.
Stewed chicken necks and backs. The parts that still had soul. You didn't buy chicken breasts. You bought what was left, necks and backs, the parts nobody wanted, the parts that still had flavor. They came cheap, packed in trays, wrapped in butcher paper, and they went straight into the pot, simmered low with onions, garlic, and maybe a bell pepper if you had one. Seasoned with salt, pepper, and whatever spice your mama kept in the cabinet. Cooked until the meat fell off the bone and the broth turned golden. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't fancy. But it was good. Served over rice, or cornbread, or just eaten with a spoon. In the 1950s, this was dinner, and it tasted like home.
Number 41.
Stewed chicken backs and necks. The parts that still had soul. You didn't buy chicken breasts. You bought backs and necks. The parts nobody wanted. The parts that were cheap. The parts that still had flavor. They came in plastic trays, wrapped tight, marked down, and they went straight into the pot. Simmered low with onions, garlic, maybe a bell pepper if you had one. Seasoned with salt, pepper, and whatever spice your mama kept in the cabinet. Cooked until the meat fell off the bone and the broth turned golden. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't fancy. But it was good, served over rice, or cornbread, or just eaten with a spoon. In the 1970s, this was dinner, and it tasted like home.
Number 42.
Field greens and sorrel herbal drink. Before sodas and sweet tea, there was sorrel steeped with ginger and clove, sometimes mixed with foraged greens. In Mississippi and Alabama, it was called marching juice, cooling the body, calming the nerves and putting strength back in tired legs. Every sip was a reminder. The roots we drink from run deep.
Number 43.
Stewed squirrel with dumplings. The hunt that fed the family. You didn't buy meat. You hunted it. Squirrel was lean, gamey, and free, cleaned carefully, simmered slowly, stewed with onions, carrots, and herbs, thickened with flour, topped with dumplings, soft, doughy, and filling. It was rustic. It was rich. It was real, served on Sundays, or after a good hunt, or when there was nothing else in the house. In the 1950s, stewed squirrel wasn't strange. It was survival.
Number 44.
Cabbage and smoked sausage, the pot that never ran out. Cabbage was cheap. Smoked sausage was salty, fatty, and full of flavor. Together they made a pot that could stretch for days. You'd slice the cabbage thin. Brown the sausage in a little oil. Add onions, garlic, and water. Simmer until everything was tender and the broth was rich. It was served with cornbread, or white bread, or just eaten with a fork standing at the stove. The smell filled the house. The steam fogged the windows, and the taste lingered long after the plates were cleared. In the 1970s, this was comfort food, and it didn't cost more than a few dollars.
Number 45.
Cowpea and collard stew. The bowl that held tradition. Cowpeas were hearty. Collards were strong. Together, they made a stew that fed generations, simmered with onions, garlic, and smoked meat, seasoned with vinegar, pepper, and love, cooked until tender, served with cornbread or rice. It was earthy. It was nourishing. It was sacred, passed down from elders, cooked in cast iron, eaten with reverence. In the 1950s, cowpea and collard stew was more than food. It was heritage.
Number 46.
Canned mackerel patties, the fish that didn't need a boat. You didn't buy fresh fish. You bought canned mackerel, packed in oil, bones, and all. You'd mash it in a bowl, add breadcrumbs, onions, eggs, and seasoning. Form it into patties. Fry them in a hot skillet until golden and crisp. They were served with rice, or grits, or just eaten between two slices of bread. The bones softened in the pan. The flavor was strong, and the smell filled the kitchen with something that felt like abundance. In the 1970s, canned mackerel patties were a poor man's crab cake, and they tasted like survival.
Number 47.
Peach and cornbread pudding, sweetness from scraps. It started with leftovers, day-old cornbread, overripe peaches, but in the hands of black cooks, it became something sacred. Peach and cornbread pudding was a dessert born from ingenuity. Crumbled cornbread soaked in spiced milk, layered with sliced peaches and baked until golden and tender. The edges crisped, the center stayed soft, and the flavor? It was sunshine and soul. In old black cookbooks, this dish was rarely written down, passed instead from voice to voice, from kitchen to kitchen. It was a way to stretch what you had, to turn scraps into celebration, to make sweetness out of struggle. Peaches were seasonal, cornbread was constant. Together, they told a story of survival wrapped in warmth. To eat peach and cornbread pudding was to taste memory, to taste love, to taste a legacy that refused to waste and always found a way to nourish.
Number 48.
Turnip greens with cornmeal dumplings. The pot that stretched. Turnip greens were bitter, but they were free, pulled from gardens, bought for pennies, boiled with onions, garlic, and fatback. Simmered until tender, topped with cornmeal dumplings, dropped by spoonfuls, steamed until soft. It was filling. It was frugal. It was flavorful, served with hot sauce or vinegar, or just eaten with a spoon. In the 1950s, this was how you made a pot stretch and how you made greens feel like a feast.
Number 49.
Pokeweed greens, the foraged feast. You didn't buy greens. You picked them. Pokeweed grew wild in ditches, in yards, in places where nothing else would. And if you knew how to cook it, it could feed a family. You'd boil it 3 times to remove the toxins, drain it, saute it with onions, garlic, and bacon grease. It was bitter, it was earthy, and it was sacred, served with cornbread, or mixed into rice, or eaten with hot sauce and silence. In the 1970s, pokeweed greens were more than food. They were knowledge. passed down from elders who knew how to survive.
Number 50.
Molasses cookies. The sweet that didn't need sugar. Sugar was expensive. Molasses was not. Thick, dark, sticky. It came in jars, and it made everything taste like warmth. Molasses cookies were made from flour, lard, baking soda, and a generous pour of molasses, spiced with cinnamon, ginger, and clove, rolled into balls, baked until cracked and chewy. They were sweet. They were spicy. They were comforting, served with milk or coffee, or just eaten warm from the pan. In the 1950s, molasses cookies were a treat, and they didn't cost more than a few cents.
Number 51.
Cornmeal mush with syrup drizzle. The breakfast that stuck. Cornmeal was cheap. Water was free. And syrup, well, you made that yourself. You'd boil cornmeal until thick. Pour it into a pan. Let it set. Slice it. Fry it. Then drizzle it with homemade syrup. Sugar, water, maybe a splash of vanilla. It was sweet. It was sticky. It was filling. Kids ate it before school. Parents ate it after work. And everyone knew it was better than boxed cereal. In the 1970s, cornmeal mush was breakfast, and it tasted like resilience.
Number 52.
Cabbage and fatback fry. The skillet that sizzled cabbage was cheap. Fatback was salty, fatty, and full of flavor. You'd slice the cabbage thin, fry the fatback until crisp. Add onions, garlic, and the cabbage. Sauté until tender and golden. It was smoky. It was savory. It was satisfying. Served with cornbread or rice, or just eaten straight from the pan. The smell filled the house. The steam fogged the windows, and the taste lingered long after the plates were cleared. In the 1950s, this was soul food, and it didn't come from a recipe, it came from instinct.
Number 53.
Fried bologna sandwiches. The circle that fed the block. Bologna was cheap. It came in big packs, sliced thin, with a red rind you peeled off like a prize. You'd fry it in a skillet until the edges curled. Toast the bread. Add mustard, maybe a slice of cheese if you had it. It was crispy. It was salty. It was perfect. Kids ate it after school. Adults ate it on break. And nobody complained, because it was good. In the 1970s, fried bologna sandwiches were more than lunch. They were a ritual.
Number 54.
Molasses cornmeal porridge. The bowl that started the day. Cornmeal was cheap. Molasses was sweet. Together they made breakfast, boiled into a thick porridge, sweetened with molasses, spiced with cinnamon or nutmeg, served hot, in bowls, in mugs, in memories. It was sticky. It was hearty. It was comforting. Kids ate it before school. Parents ate it before work. And everyone knew it was better than boxed cereal. In the 1950s, molasses cornmeal porridge was how you started the day and how you kept going.
Number 55.
Homemade syrup biscuits. The sweet that didn't need a bakery. Biscuits were made from scratch. Flour, lard, baking powder, and love. Syrup was made on the stove. Sugar, water, and patience. You'd bake the biscuits hot, split them open. Pour syrup over the top until they soaked through. They were sticky. They were soft. They were sacred, served for breakfast, or dessert, or just because. In the 1970s, syrup biscuits were a treat, and they didn't cost more than a few cents.
Number 56.
Collard green wraps, leaves that held more than food. Before tortillas, before sandwich bread, there were leaves, wide, strong, and green. Collard greens weren't just boiled into submission. They were used as wraps, filled with rice, beans, smoked meat, or mashed sweet potatoes. Rolled tight, held together by heat and hope. This wasn't just a clever way to eat. It was a tradition rooted in African ingenuity. In West Africa, leaves were used to carry food, preserve it, protect it. On American soil, that memory survived. Even when everything else was stripped away, collard green wraps were portable, nourishing, and sacred. They held more than food. They held culture. They held resistance. To eat one was to taste a legacy, wrapped in green, seasoned with memory.
Number 57.
Sweet potato pie with evaporated milk. The dessert that didn't need cream. Sweet potatoes came from the garden. Evaporated milk came from the pantry. You'd mash the potatoes. Add sugar, eggs, spices, and a splash of canned milk. Pour it into a crust. Bake until firm. It was sweet. It was spiced. It was sacred. Served at church dinners, family gatherings, or just on a quiet Sunday. In the 1970s, sweet potato pie was more than dessert. It was tradition.
Number 58.
Pickled okra, preserved with purpose. Okra didn't always land in gumbo. Sometimes it was sealed in jars, brined, spiced, and saved. Pickled okra was a preservation ritual. Vinegar, salt, garlic, and peppercorns turned this humble pot into a tangy, crunchy bite that lasted through seasons of scarcity. It was food science passed down through instinct. No refrigeration, no measuring cups, just memory. In old black kitchens, pickling wasn't just about flavor. It was about survival. It was about stretching the harvest, preparing for lean times, and honoring the land's gifts. Okra itself was African, brought across oceans, planted in unfamiliar soil, and kept alive through tradition. To pickle it was to protect it. To protect a piece of home. Pickled okra was sharp. It was bold. It was sacred.
Number 59.
Hickory nut milk. The drink that came from the trees. You didn't buy almond milk. You made hickory nut milk from nuts you gathered yourself. You'd crack the shells, boil the meat, strain the liquid, sweeten it with sugar or honey. It was creamy. It was earthy. It was rare, served cold, or warmed on the stove, and always with reverence. In the 1970s, hickory nut milk was a gift from nature, from ancestors, from the land itself.
Number 60.
Brown stewed chicken, spice that spoke without words. It didn't come from a bottle. It came from memory, from hands that knew how to layer flavor like a hymn. Brown stewed chicken was marinated in garlic, thyme, scallions, and Scotch bonnet heat, then seared until the skin darkened and simmered in a gravy so rich it clung to the bone. It was bold. It was tender. It was a dish that demanded time and gave back soul. This wasn't just cooking. It was storytelling, a Caribbean echo in southern kitchens, carried by enslaved Africans and preserved by their descendants. In old black cookbooks, brown stewed chicken was a centerpiece, served at gatherings, honored at tables, remembered in every bite. To taste it was to feel the rhythm of survival, to know that spice could speak when voices were silenced. It was heat. It was heritage. It was sacred.
Number 61.
Pecan pie bars, sweetness that stuck to the soul. They didn't always have pie tins, but they had flavor. They had fire. They had hands that knew how to turn sugar and nuts into something unforgettable. Pecan pie bars were the shortcut to celebration, pressed into pans, sliced into squares, and served at church socials, family reunions, and Sunday suppers. Sticky, buttery, and rich with roasted pecans, they were a dessert that didn't ask for perfection, just presence. In old black cookbooks, this recipe was tucked between cornbread and cobbler. It wasn't fancy. It was familiar. It was the kind of sweetness that made you close your eyes and hum. Pecans were gathered, traded, or gifted. Sugar was stretched. And every bite carried the joy of making something beautiful from what little you had. To eat a pecan pie bar was to taste celebration, to taste community, to taste a sacred kind of sweetness.
Number 62.
Rabbit and dumplings. Rabbit was Sunday best meat in hard times. Slow cooked until tender, with thick dumplings soaking up every drop of broth. In Nashville, 61, a church elder served rabbit and dumplings to every teen released. From jail after protests, they ate with bruises on their faces but courage in their bellies. Years later, some of those kids said that pot of rabbit and dumplings was the first time they truly felt seen. Not as troublemakers, but as somebody's child, somebody's future.
Number 63.
Braised oxtails with gravy. The bones that became a banquet. Oxtails were cheap, but they were rich in flavor, in fat, in tradition, braised low and slow. with onions, garlic, and herbs, simmered until the meat fell off the bone, thickened into gravy. Served over rice, mashed potatoes, or grits, it was tender. It was luxurious. It was love cooked on special occasions, or when the butcher had a deal, or when you wanted to make something feel fancy. In the 1950s, oxtails were a poor man's prime rib, and they tasted like celebration.
Number 64.
Corn cob broth with onion skins. When cupboards were bare, people turned to what others threw away. Corn cobs and onion skins boiled slow made a golden sweet broth that could stretch any meal. In '66, Arkansas, this broth bubbled in borrowed pots behind churches during long nights of organizing, a quiet reminder that nothing and no one was wasted. It taught a lesson that went beyond the kitchen. Even the thrown-away parts could give back if you treated them right.
Number 65.
Molasses glazed ham, sweetness worth saving for. It wasn't an everyday meal. It was a moment. A centerpiece carved with care, glazed with memory. Molasses glazed ham was the crown jewel of special occasions, holidays, homecomings, and Sundays that felt like salvation. Thick-cut ham, slow roasted, then brushed with molasses until it shimmered with sweetness and history. The glaze was sticky, smoky, and bold, a flavor that lingered long after the plates were cleared. Molasses was cheaper than sugar, but richer in meaning. It came from cane fields, from labor, from legacy, and when it touched the ham, it turned meat into memory. In old black cookbooks, this dish was written with reverence. It wasn't just about taste, it was about triumph, about turning what was once rationed into something radiant. To eat molasses glazed ham was to celebrate survival, to honor the hands that stirred, basted, and believed. It was sweet. It was sacred. It was ours.
Number 66.
Salmon croquettes. Canned salmon, breadcrumbs, onions, and egg, fried until golden. During the Montgomery bus boycott, churches handed out lunch sacks with warm croquettes to those walking miles to work. It wasn't just a patty, it was a promise. We got you? That little patty reminded folks that struggle didn't mean going without. Not when you had a whole community ready to fry up hope by the handful.
Number 67.
Sweet potato casserole with marshmallows, a toast to tradition. It wasn't just a side dish. It was a centerpiece. Golden sweet potatoes mashed smooth, seasoned with cinnamon, nutmeg, and a whisper of vanilla. Then crowned with marshmallows, toasted until golden, soft, and melting into memory. This dish didn't come from wealth. It came from warmth, from kitchens where dessert and dinner blurred together, and sweetness was a form of love. In old black cookbooks, sweet potato casserole was a holiday staple, served at Thanksgiving, Christmas, and any Sunday that felt like a celebration. It was a dish that said, "We made it through," that honored the harvest, that turned humble roots into something divine. Marshmallows were a luxury, saved, stretched, and placed with care. Each one a little cloud of joy. To eat this casserole was to taste comfort, to taste survival dressed in sweetness, to taste a tradition that toasted the past and fed the future.
Number 68.
Blackbird stew. This was the meal for folks who knew how to make something out of nothing. Blackbirds caught in fields, plucked and simmered with onions, greens, and roots. The broth turned dark and rich, the meat tender enough to fall from the bone. During the rural boycotts of '61, when store shelves were off limits to black families, this stew kept people alive. Out on back steps or under moonlight on old porches, elders passed down the know-how: how to catch a bird, how to stretch a meal, how to stay proud with a belly half full. That stew held more than meat. It held memory, and the quiet knowledge that survival itself was an act of defiance.
Number 69.
Squirrel fricassee or fried squirrel. In the country, squirrel was no stranger to the dinner table. Fried crisp or simmered in gravy until it fell off the bone, it was a dish that could feed a crowd on almost nothing. During Freedom, summer in '64, one elder fed 14 volunteers with 6 squirrels and a whole lot of gravy. They ate with biscuits, soaking up every drop, planning the next day's march. Nobody asked for seconds out of greed. They asked because that squirrel tasted like unity.
Number 70.
Ash cake wrapped in collard leaves. Cornmeal dough wrapped in collard leaves, baked right in the ashes of a fire. During protests in Georgia, elders made ash cakes in backyards for young marchers returning from sit-ins, tired, hungry, but proud. That smoky, earthy bread filled the gap between anger and hope. Kids fought over the crusty bits, burnt edges and all, because that's where the magic was.
Number 71.
Dandelion green hash. Now here's a breakfast that'll make you stop and say, "We really used to eat that?" Dandelion green hash was one of those dishes born from deep roots. Literally. Back in the day, when money was tight and grocery stores weren't always close, folks turned to the land. Dandelion greens, wild and bitter, were picked fresh from the yard or roadside, cleaned with care, and cooked down with onions, garlic, and a little fatback or smoked meat, if you had it. Then came the hash, chopped potatoes, maybe a few scraps of meat, all fried up in a skillet till crispy and golden. Mix it all together, and you had a breakfast that was bold, earthy, and full of grit. The kind of flavor that didn't ask for permission. Elders remember waking up to the smell of greens cooking low, the sound of potatoes popping in grease, and the taste of something that felt like strength. This wasn't just food. It was medicine. It was memory. It was making do with what the earth gave you. And today, most folks walk right past dandelions without even knowing they fed generations. But ask your grandma, your great uncle, or that neighbor who still keeps a garden. They'll tell you. This was survival food turned soul food.
Number 72.
Fried grits cakes. Ever wonder what happened to the breakfast that came straight from the skillet? No shortcuts, no frills, just pure soul. Fried grits cakes were one of those dishes that made you feel like you were eating history. Not the kind of grits you stir and forget. I'm talking about leftover grits, cooled overnight, sliced thick, and fried golden in a cast iron pan till the edges got crispy and the middle stayed soft. This was the kind of breakfast that showed up when Grandma didn't waste a thing. She'd wake up early, slice those grits like she was cutting cornbread, drop 'em in hot grease, and let the smell do the talking. You could hear that sizzle from the next room, and you knew breakfast was about to hit different. Some folks ate 'em plain, some added cheese or a little bacon grease, and if you were lucky, you got a drizzle of syrup or a fried egg on top. Elders remember sitting at the table, fork in hand, steam rising off the plate, and feeling like royalty, even if the pantry was bare. Fried grits cakes weren't just food. They were proof that flavor didn't come from money. It came from memory. And today, most folks don't even know they existed.
Number 73.
Turnip green juice with cornbread. Now this one right here, it's straight up Southern soul in a cup and a slice. Turnip green juice with cornbread wasn't just breakfast, it was a ritual. You ever hear your elders talk about pot liquor? That's the rich vitamin-packed broth left behind after simmering greens low and slow with smoked meat, onions, and love. And instead of tossing it, folks drank it. Warm, salty, earthy, sometimes with a splash of vinegar or hot sauce. But the real magic? Dipping a chunk of cornbread right into that juice, letting it soak up all that flavor like a sponge. Elders remember sitting at the table, bowl in hand, cornbread crumbling in, and feeling like they were eating gold. This wasn't just about nutrition, though it was packed with it. It was about respecting the whole process. You didn't waste nothing. You honored the greens, the broth, the hands that stirred the pot. And that cornbread, it was never sweet. It was gritty, golden, and baked in a skillet with a crust that could make you cry. These weren't just meals to start the day. They were stories told in cast iron, passed down in whispers, and served with pride. From fried grits cakes to pumpkin cornbread pancakes, every dish was a reminder that our elders knew how to turn scraps into soul, struggle into strength, and food into memory. These breakfasts fed generations, built communities, and gave comfort when comfort was hard to come by. And today, they deserve to be remembered, revived, and respected. If one of these dishes stirred something in you, a smell, a sound, a moment from your childhood, don't let it fade. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs a taste of the past, and drop a comment with your own breakfast memory. Let's keep the stories alive, one plate at a time. And don't forget to subscribe, because this ain't just about food, it's about legacy. And we've got more to uncover, more to honor, and more to serve.